you Days of Our Lives fans? Welcome to AfterBuzz TV's Spotlight On. I am your host, Tony Moore, and I am joined by my wonderful co-host who has the highest hair I've ever seen.
And I just got it cut.
You did. It's
Mark J. Freeman here.
And of course, we here at Dishin Days like to bring you guys current and past cast members that have been on your favorite soap opera, Days of Our Lives. And today is no exception. We have with us the one and only supervillain of Days of Our Lives, our favorite country bumpkin. Can we say country bumpkin?
We can say country bumpkin.
He is Mr. James Reed, Skyping in. Hi, James.
The man you all love to hate, you mean?
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
You know what? And we were just talking before this. We had Lauren Koslow in, and her character was the same way, a character that we all love to hate.
Well, I think Clyde gave people a little bit more. I don't know all of Lauren's, Kate Roberts' history, but
right.
Clyde was a lot to embrace. Initially.
He was definitely a tough one for you, James. Like, you have such an intensive resume, and you've done theater, you've done TV, you've done film, and then you stepped into daytime. What was that transition like for you?
It was all about character, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
I got sent the script, and the character description included the words drug dealer, potential child molester,
oh my goodness,
and all around bad guy. Now, how could you resist a character?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I hear you.
But actually, that's exactly what attracted me. I haven't been known for playing those kinds of characters,
mm-hmm.
and they are the most fun by far. And I really wanted a shot at it, so see what I could do with it. It's clearly the most despicable and twisted character I've ever played, and perhaps the most fun because of that.
So
did Days of Our Lives reach out to you personally and said, we want you for this role?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's good to know.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, because we had Patricia Darbo
mm-hmm.
in a few weeks ago who played Nancy years ago, like back in the '90s, and she was the same way. Days reached out to her
mm-hmm.
For the show. I wish Days would reach out to me to play Maxine's son. We're still trying to make that happen.
Well, and other thing,
there's still hope.
Yeah, there is another 50 years,
right?
Hopefully. Another thing I was going to tell you too is I feel like almost everybody we've had in the studio that we've interviewed and asked, who did you like to work with? Who would you want to work with? Mm-hmm. Who would you have liked to work with more? I would have to say almost everybody mentioned your name.
Yes.
That they loved working with you or they wanted more scenes with you. Mm-hmm. So just so you know that, I don't know if you tune into our AfterBuzz very often, which you don't have to, but just so you know, that was what was being said about everyone.
Yeah. Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it. That was perhaps the greatest thing about working on Days was an incredible cast. Mm-hmm. Just was, the demands of that medium are so, in many ways, very different from anything else I've done.
Yeah.
And the biggest pleasure was realizing that, without exception, everyone's on the same page. Everyone's there to do the best work possible and to do whatever it takes to make the best work possible under sometimes really challenging circumstances.
Yeah.
And made a lot of great friends, and that was a highlight.
Did you have any doubts about doing daytime? Having done film and TV and other stuff, like I just know that daytime kind of gets this stigma of, well, it's daytime, blah, blah, blah. Did you have any doubts about it?
It goes with the territory.
Yeah.
And having no experience in daytime, I really didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And all I did know was that the time constraints are huge, and there are just mountains of pages of dialogue
mm-hmm.
to memorize on a daily basis, mm-hmm. and that's intimidating. On a feature film, you average maybe 2 to 3 pages a day. That's about what's done. On a nighttime drama, it's maybe 8 to 10,
mm-hmm.
and on Days we're doing 125. So, I mean, granted,
no pressure,
no characters in every scene. You don't have all that memorized, but often have to do, study 25, 30 pages of the dialogue for a day. So
Right.
that's huge.
For you coming onto the show and having to play like an original character, how was that for you? Were you nervous about how fans would react to Clyde, and afterwards, how did you feel was fans' reactions to your character?
Well, every show needs a bad guy.
Yeah.
And Clyde was clearly a bad guy, and I didn't think I'd be around very long. Read a character description like that, he's not going to become a legacy character. That's not what it's for. It doesn't serve the story that way. And I thought, I didn't expect to be there more than 6 months. It just, when you get that kind of description, you can bend a lot of rules in daytime, but any kind of child abuse, even in daytime, is pretty much unforgivable.
Yeah.
Lauren talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, she said
when she was here.
She mentioned that with that stigma on your character, I think it was sometimes hard for fans to embrace Clyde a little bit.
It definitely was. It was hard for me to embrace as an actor, because you have to do your best to defend and legitimize your character's actions and concerns, whatever. And it doesn't excuse them, in a judgmental sense, but you have to find a way to make it okay to see the world through that character's eyes. So that's a challenge, and not always a happy place to be. On a working set. But they backpedaled a little bit. They never, as time went on, they never clearly established exactly what happened between Clyde and his daughter. It was basically his word against her word. As a joke, people would, on the set, other actors would give me a hard time about it, and I'd say, "What's the big deal? Jerry Lee Lewis married his cousin. She was 13.
That's a very good point.
She was only a stepdaughter, and she was 16. Come on." No. I'm joking, please. Just reading a transcript of this, I'm joking.
They're not going to read that part when they quote you. Don't worry.
But like I said, they never, in our big showdown scene that took, months to get to, it wasn't clearly established exactly what happened, how it happened, and clearly Clyde felt some remorse. Or at least he was trying to make her believe he had remorse, and which was, he's a sociopath and a unrepentant liar from the get-go. So he would always, say what serves him. But I chose to believe that there was some sincere element of truth, and his whole idea of coming to Salem was finding forgiveness from his children, at least as much as he could find.
Because that's what we found with the Clyde, Jordan, Ben storyline, was that we could tell that they were heading in one direction, but then it just kind of like dropped off, and then we were like, oh, well, what happened? But then we kind of deem it now as classic Days.
Where
they kind of go in one direction, and then they go, oh, no, not sure, and then they go into a different direction.
And, that happens, and writers have to respond to, it's one thing to put it down on paper, it's another thing to watch it and see what actors have brought to it and how the audience reacts to a story. And, they should be able to react to the audience response and to go down to further explore those storylines which the audience seems to savor, and to do an about face on ones that clearly aren't going to work and are a dead end.
I think
so. Some of that is expected and is a good thing. It's doubly hard because Days shoot so far in advance and they can't respond. It's like turning a.
That's what I was just gonna say.
It's not a speedboat in the water. It's a big damn freighter going to China, and it takes hours for this thing to turn around. It's a very slow moving machine. But I think they found. I think when they really took the focus off of that whole backstory, that's when the character really got fun for me.
Oh yeah.
Then I could be a gangster. I could be loving with my son.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is, I'd get a lot of fan reaction about, you got to take Clyde down because look what he did to EJ.
Yeah.
Right.
He didn't kill EJ, right? He didn't intend for EJ to be killed. It was, an accident. Yeah, he was related to it, but he didn't give the order.
Right.
And how could he knife
Sonny?
Yeah.
Right? Well, excuse me, didn't Victor try to have me killed? Hire a guy to shoot me, and I was only around because there was a vest, a bulletproof vest.
Yeah.
See,
but that shows you that through time, audiences embrace characters and they give them a lot of latitude. Latitude that they don't give a character that hasn't been around so long.
Yeah.
And I got the feeling that, just before my storyline came to a conclusion, that the audience was starting to find that little tiny bit of room for forgiveness or leeway with Clyde where they initially weren't, especially because of the Jordan background.
Yeah,
right.
That's so funny. James Lott Jr., who's our other co-host at Dishin Days, I was messaging him before, and I asked, I was like, didn't Clyde get shot at one point in time, and then we all thought he was dead, but then he came back, and you totally just cleared that up because I remember that, and I felt like it was kind of weird because he got shot, and then we thought he was dead and that you weren't coming back, and then you did come back. Was there something happening with the character that we don't know about behind the scenes? Were they trying to sort of veer him off into a different direction, or any insight to that?
I don't know for sure. That could have been Clyde's original exit scene.
I see.
And they changed their mind. I think Clyde was clearly there to be involved with getting rid of EJ.
Right.
I think that was part of the plan from the beginning.
Got it.
Whether at some point they saw, we can get some more mileage out of Clyde here. Let's not kill him, and let's have him go to bat against Victor and Stefano and sort of mix it up a little. I'm not sure at that point that there was any clear path for Clyde, and that they were kind of making things up as they go along. But again, don't know for sure.
Yeah. I was going to say too, well, you mentioned the writers and everything. When the new writing happened, I remember saying on our show, I just felt like Clyde just ate his spinach or something, like Popeye. Just became like Clyde times 100 with the new writing. I was like, I don't know if that was your doing or they said to you, I was just curious if there was a discussion about, elevating him or something. Because I was like, as soon as the new writing happened, I was like, oh my goodness, he ate his spinach.
I think that's when we noticed that, because before we felt like Clyde was trying to be as powerful as a Victor and a Stefano, and we weren't quite sure. And then all of a sudden, the new writing started, and we're oh, he's scary. I think he's right there with Victor and Stefano.
Well, I think they decided they had to show the side of Clyde instead of having people talk about it.
Right. Yeah. That's a good.
And in the previous regime's defense, in terms of the writers, I think there were definite improvements in the storytelling with the new team.
Right.
But these storylines, many of them were set well before the new guys came on.
Right.
And in some cases, all they're doing is, they have a Bible and they're putting in, dialogue that the other guys would have. But initially, anyway, there's not a whole lot of road mapping that this new team can do because, they come in on day one and they have to work for a certain amount of time into the future with the story that's been laid out. And when Clyde really started finding his mojo, it was just, as far as I can recall, I think maybe the first day the new writing team was Clyde's knockdown drag out with Aiden.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I think that's what I was like, whoa.
So,
Yeah.
which I thought was a great fight.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That I was like, Clyde is tough.
And then they did Clyde a great favor by right after that having this great scene with Rafe in the bar where this is
Oh, yeah.
one-upmanship, and all of a sudden, Clyde's a brute, but he's also fiendishly clever and can be kind of scarily charming.
Yeah.
And so I think that's when he really sort of clicked into gear, and then continued, I think, from that point on until last week that he found his mojo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had a lot of intense scenes with a lot of the actors at Days, with Chriselle Stiles, who played Jordan Ridgway, with Daniel Cosgrove, who you just mentioned, Aiden, and of course John Aniston, who played Victor. How was it working with each of those people for you while you were there?
Well, like I say, I was so surprised pleasantly at the professionalism of everybody,
Yeah.
and how consistent that is, and every actor is unique and brings different strengths to their performance and the way they interpret roles. John Aniston is he's a minimalist, and he does so much with so little, and so effective at conveying a huge range of emotion just through a wrinkle of an eyebrow or
a witty comment, which we love here.
Something, which I really appreciate it. And you just find ways. Every scene with an actor is a bit of a dance, and if it's working well, you don't know exactly what the steps are. You just you follow each other, and it becomes kind of an organic thing and that's the kind of beauty of daytime, because you don't get much rehearsal time. There's not very much that gets locked down. Because you're still trying to, remember the lines, and you haven't had an extensive rehearsal period. The cameras can in a film, you really can't move off your mark. If you do, you throw everything off, and everything has to stop, and you have to relight, and you'll get your ass fired if you do that too many times, because you're costing people money.
Right.
In daytime, with 3 cameras rolling all the time, they never stop, and they can adapt to whatever an actor does. So however that dance evolves, and it's often not a physical dance in terms of movement, but it's a creative, dramatic dance. They can go with it. They can keep things going, and that kind of electricity is really unique, I think, to daytime, and something else I really enjoyed about it.
Yeah. Now we do have fans who are watching us live. Shout out to all of our fans that are tuning in live. And we have some fan questions for you as well. They've been hounding all through our chat room here with so many burning questions. So we're going to get to a few of those, starting with Susie Morales Smealy, who asks, are you open to returning at any point?
Sure.
Oh, didn't even hesitate.
Yeah,
I like that.
No hesitation at all. I wonder what Clyde what his return would be like.
Yeah.
Would he be like an Andre who says everything is taken care of, and I've been pardoned by the Florida police.
Everybody.
Yeah. Well, that was an intense or an abrupt leave for Clyde. Last Thursday, I felt like you got so much information, and then you were
gotta
whisked
go.
away. How was it filming those scenes with Rob Wilson, and how was your last day on set?
I loved filming those scenes, and like I said, that was one of the scenes in particular where we didn't. I like to go into those scenes with a minimal amount of rehearsal because that material is so rich emotionally that you can only go to the well too many times before the well is dry. So I really, and the sense of the unexpected, when you don't know exactly what's coming next, that only heightens the reality and the drama of the scenes. So we did a little, I think we went over the lines a couple times, real methodically, just to make sure they were down, and then just left it alone until we went to shoot. And it was really fun because Rob was so there in the moment and so with the emotion. All I had to do was listen to him, watch him, and be with him. Much as like a father can be, and you just realize. I don't think I've read many stories, horrible stories about people being murdered and the murderers, kill them over the years. And I think, and they show pictures of their parents in a courtroom. And, from time to time I've thought, how could they do that? How could they be there to support their child? They've done such a heinous thing. Isn't there anything that, proves them to be unlovable, that they're no longer worth your time and attention? The answer is no.
Right.
When you go play a character like this, you realize that absolutely, no matter what they do, there's no stopping the love. No matter how they might disappoint you, no matter how much they might turn out to be something you don't like or support, you can't cut off the love, and if you try to, you pay the price personally, I believe.
Yeah. That scene, we talked about it this past Sunday, and to watch your reactions to his confession of all the killings and things, I thought like it was like a father knowing that his child had the capabilities of doing this, but didn't know that he was actually going to do this. So like there was a moment where me personally, like as an audience, I was just like, I'm Southern, so I use the term "bless your heart." But it was a really intense scene.
I was hoping the audience wouldn't know exactly how Clyde was going to react after receiving all this information, because Ben has been he's been the recipient of every hope for redemption that Clyde's ever had. All of Clyde's failures and regrets are going to be redeemed through the way Ben lives his life. And Clyde was completely thrown, completely taken aback by what he found out. And I think Clyde went through a process of initially like, are you kidding me? You're telling me this? I'm cutting you off. You're nothing to me now. Your history. You don't exist. And then the story being long enough, and Rob's emotional life being so apparent that you break through that barrier and cut through to the emotion, knowing that this might be the last time he ever sees his son.
I was going to ask you, we had mentioned to you earlier that we had Lauren Kozlow here last week, and she spoke very highly of you, as most people have.
Most?
The ones that we've had on. All. I know Billy mentioned you as well, Billy Flynn. But I was just curious how you oh my gosh, get it out, Mark. You're flustering me. How was working with Lauren Kozlow, and can you tell us something that maybe she didn't tell us? A deep dark secret about Lauren Kozlow that she wouldn't share with us.
Well, I can't tell you. I'm not sure exactly what she did tell you. So I could make things up.
There we go. We're down with that. We're always down with that.
She was very welcoming. I think she knew initially from day one that she was going to have a number of scenes with me, and she probably knew before I did that there was a love interest relationship evolving, and she knew that I was a fish out of water, and when you come on to a set like that, it's different because there's you never find the same cast in the studio from one day to the next. It's constantly changing, and people come in the morning and leave before lunch, and it's like a bus station. So it's hard to get a sense of familiarity there until you've been for a while and you're passing people in the hallway and in the you sit next in the makeup room or something. And Lauren was just really sweet, and I just felt like the new kid in school. And she went out of her way to show me around, introduce me to people, and give me the lay of the land, and what to expect as far as the workload, and just made things really easy. And I was always really appreciate that.
Was there anyone that you would have liked to have worked with more?
Oh God, yeah. It was so nice towards the last few months where they started writing scenes for Clyde and a number of different characters. It would in the beginning it was a pretty small circle. It was, Ben and Jordan and and their love interest, and maybe Rafe and Kate, and that was about it. And it was really fun to work with Marlena. I was really hoping they'd take that shrink thing. Go down that road a ways, because sometimes I was, Clyde was really playing with her and feeding her lines, and other times he was kind of desperately looking to break out of his prison. His mental, his emotional prison, and it was nice to kind of play with that and go back and forth. And she's such a pro. She was, right there. Daniel was so much fun to work with. Maybe the funniest person on the face of the earth.
We've heard that from several.
Absolutely hilarious. Didn't get enough time to work with Billy. We had a couple of scenes together, and I was so impressed with how well he did from day one, hit the ground running without any experience as a professional actor, and how every day he got even better. And I think he's marvelous. Love to watch his work, and wish we had more scenes together.
Now, one question that a fan did have was, what was your initial reaction when Ben was revealed as the necktie killer?
Well, I didn't get any. There was no indication in any of my scenes about that, and I hadn't followed the development of the developing storyline as closely as I would if I had been, more involved. I was the red herring, and everything I was doing was obviously, intended to make people believe that it was me. And from a character point of view, nothing else was really important to me. And I was so glad that I didn't know much, because that scene, I think, with Rob was so much better, hearing all this stuff in a sense for the first time. And as I recall, he was, I don't know, the audience maybe found out a week before or so. It was him, but they didn't really have, how did this all happen? Saw the neckties in the apartment and that kind of stuff. But it was fun to be the audience's eyes in those scenes of learning, me being the conduit for the audience, finding out exactly what was going on with this guy and what could have made him do this.
Did you have any idea when they announced this storyline? Did you have any idea of who you thought it might be? Did he pop into your head?
I was shocked.
Really? Okay.
Shocked,
Well, I think we all were a little bit.
I wasn't that only because they were making it sound like it was going to be. They're like, you're going to be so surprised. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's going to be like a major character. So I think that's why I wasn't as surprised. I'm like, oh, okay.
Looking back, it all fits perfectly. It's just a perfect puzzle. And it seems so obvious in this story that they have to tell. But I don't know, when you're it's just when you're in the forest, you don't really see the trees.
Right.
You don't,
Exactly.
You get that broad sense.
Yeah. And we always forget that we see more than the individual characters on the show. So we're always like, how can you not know? I'm like, oh, because you're. And I always forget too. Like I know, like you were just saying that you didn't get to work with everybody. It was a small circle that you work with. And to us, it's so funny because I think I think it was even Ben that said something about who's Stefano, and I was like, how does he not know Stefano? Because we see everybody and we know everybody. We just assume that everybody, and we're like, oh, that's right. They've never really been together. They've never had any conversations about them, so that's just funny.
Even though there are only apparently 22 people living.
Right. Exactly.
Not everybody knows each other.
We had a question from Carolyn Topol. Hello, Carolyn. She is a huge fan of us and you. She asked, of all of your roles, which roles were most personally significant or memorable?
Yeah.
George Hazard in North and South.
I knew it. I was just going to say it has to be. Yeah.
And what was it like working with Patrick Swayze? Because I read somewhere, I think that was he was one of your on-screen idols, correct? Or maybe that was Wikipedia, which I shouldn't trust.
Jimmy Stewart was one of my, and Robert Mitchum were both idols of mine, and that was so unbelievable that I not only got to be in the same show, but to have scenes with these guys was incredible.
Well, it was funny because we were talking to one of our producers here about you being on the show, and she was so excited because she said, "Oh, he was in Charmed," and she mentioned beaches, and it was just so funny because as soon as she said it, I was like, oh my God, he totally was in Beaches.
Yeah, and I've watched Beaches
hundreds of times.
Yeah.
Hundreds of times. And I have to say this too, since we were talking about North and South, I actually, in my history class in high school, we were able to watch it. Our history teacher let us watch the whole miniseries in class.
Well, I've heard that so many times.
And it was so funny because not too long ago, I would say maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I was like, I need to get that on DVD because I just remember I loved it. I was so consumed with it, which obviously most people were.
Yeah.
So when I Googled it and I saw that, I was like, oh my God, how did I not remember this was you? I was like, oh my God, that was just such a memorable miniseries. I don't think there's ever been anything quite like that.
Yeah.
Well, that was a reboot of Gone with the Wind.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then instead of 3 hours, it was 24.
Exactly.
30. I mean, literally, it went on forever. Mm-hmm. But when you have a great historical saga like that, and so many, it's the same format is daytime, where you have a core group of characters and families and all intertwined, but the fact that this was real, it all really happened, and
right.
I remember it was a hit all over the world, and I did a number of press junkets for it, and I went to Germany. It was very big in Germany, maybe the biggest ratings winner up to that time for a non-German produced television show.
Wow!
And we went to Berlin, and I did a talk show there, and it struck me when I was there, because this was before the wall came down.
Oh, okay.
When East Berlin was still divided, West Berlin was surrounded by East Germany, and you had to have special permission. I went through Checkpoint Charlie into the east side and all that. And these people were living the reality.
Yeah.
200 years later, what might have, 150 years later, what could have happened to the U.S. So I think that the story had really, really deep resonance with them, because the worst possible outcome came true for them. Families were split apart, the country was ripped in two, and there was a literal wall dividing these people. And they we came so close to that in the U.S. and so it hit really deep for them, but it was a similar kind of visceral experience in many places around the world. It was amazing.
Yeah. And you met your wife there.
I did, yeah. The first day of dance rehearsal In a Warner Brothers soundstage, before production even started, she came sashaying across the floor.
See, all it takes is a little sachet. They'll steal your heart.
Right.
We mentioned beaches earlier. How was it working with Barbara Hershey?
Great. She was really, really focused. A real professional. She was kind of, has a reputation for, really taking on roles and being difficult to let go of them. It's just, I don't know if she would call herself a method actress, but seemed that way to me. And she had. There's quite a bit of resentment she stored for my character, so it was challenging at times not to be the object of her scorn after they yelled cut.
Yeah.
She was fun, and Bette Midler is a force of nature.
Oh my God, yeah.
As one powerful woman, one extremely talented one. That was really fun.
Oh, I bet. With James and I were James Lott Jr. and I were discussing the movie earlier, and just how like it was such a real depiction of a friendship. Yeah. And a long lasting friendship.
And the ups and downs.
Because real friendships do have that.
Yeah.
Oh, that movie has real legs. I mean, that's the kind of movie that's passed down from mother to daughter, and and grandma watches. They all watch it together. And it's timeless. It's not. It's not one of those pictures that gets lost, 10 years after it's out because people can't relate anymore.
Yeah,
it's very, very much now. It's a period piece, but timeless themes of female friendship.
I still cry like a baby.
Me too.
I'm not ashamed to say it.
I always know the parts coming up, and I cry like a little baby. I even did when I was younger, because I used to borrow my neighbor's VHS tapes. Well before DVDs.
We're dating ourselves.
And, I know, right? And that was one of the movies, and I just remember watching it and just like sobbing, like someone just stole all of my Halloween candy.
Yeah.
I don't think Clyde ever cried.
No. Clyde never looked like a crier. Now, before you started acting, I read that you were studying law. Was that correct?
It's actually not correct.
See, Wikipedia.
Well, no, I saw it on something else that wasn't Wikipedia, but then I saw another one that kind of contradicted what I read, and I was like, originally, one I read said that you went to Oregon University, and then another one said Vermont.
Both. I went to Vermont, and where I was intending on being a forestry major.
That's what I read. That's what it was. Yep.
And
I'm going to go edit your Wikipedia right now with the correct information.
After a half a semester of that, I knew it was the wrong choice, and I had no idea what I was doing there.
Yeah.
And I dropped out, and then for about a year and a half, and I did some extensive traveling in Europe. Came back to the States and thought that I'd like to keep traveling, but I should go back to school. Mm-hmm. And I had never been west of Buffalo, New York, so I thought Oregon might be a good choice. So
got it. All right.
Finished up at Oregon.
And then you have a master's from Pepperdine.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a friend who went to Pepperdine, so at least I was right about something.
Right,
we're related, aren't we?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, I was just gonna say, well, when I went to Ohio State my first year, I was a landscape architecture major, and I quickly realized, okay, this isn't gonna happen. There's a lot of math I have to know, and that just did not work. And I was like, okay, where's the theater department?
Exactly.
Yeah.
James, what gravitated you towards acting? Like, what did you enjoy about it that just sucked you in?
When I was in Europe, I was traveling by myself, and at the time, and still, I speak no foreign languages. And I had been on the road for a couple of months, and I was really, really, really lonely. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'd be in hostels where there were other Americans, and you could engage in conversation. But largely, I was just starved for conversation. And when I got to England, I was so relieved to be in a country where I could understand people and vice versa.
Right.
And yet I was still alone. And for some reason, I just thought, why don't I go to the theater? It's the seat of the world's best theater.
Right.
The West End, and tickets for you can get standing room tickets for next to nothing. And I did, and I wound up going to, I don't know, a mess of shows. I went up to Stratford and saw the Royal Shakespeare Company, and something about the whole of what theater was all about and what plays were, and which I had no exposure to really growing up as a kid. It just sort of a light went on,
Yeah.
And I saw some really transformational theater. And when I got back to the States and I went to college, I went to a college theater production just to watch it, and I wasn't terribly impressed.
They can do that better.
They weren't as good as the Royal Shakespeare Company.
Yeah.
And I thought, I could do that.
Yep.
And so the next time I heard about an audition, I went and I got cast, and that kind of really started the ball rolling.
I'm just curious, you were talking about traveling alone in Europe. Did you have any fight from the parents about doing that on your own?
Remarkably little.
Oh, okay.
Which kind of, I'm so surprised at now, because when my kids became that age and I thought about them doing what I did, I don't know how they let me go. They drove me down to the west side of Manhattan and watched me get on this big ass ocean liner and waved to me as I went, sailing across the sea. And there was obviously no cell phones, no Skype.
Right.
I would go to an American Express office in Paris or wherever city I was and hope that there might be a letter waiting there for me. That was the only way you could communicate. And the price of a transatlantic telephone call was the price of a week in a stay in a hotel and meals and museums every day. It was incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
So they had so little contact with me, and didn't know really, only a general idea even what country I was in.
Yeah.
And I think how hard that must have been for them, but they were really good about it.
That's great.
Oh, nice. Well, now your kids have something that they can use.
Can hold over your head.
Against you and go, listen, we saw that interview and we know what you went through, so we're good to go.
Well, I've already been, both of them.
Oh, great.
Oh, nice.
But cell phones and Skype, it changes, it shrinks the world. It's a whole different deal, and it's not easy, but it's a hell of a lot easier than it was.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. We do have another fan question, and they asked, do you have a side of you that reminds you of Clyde in real life?
That's kind of a dangerous question.
That's one of those questions you don't want to answer, right? That we asked you about earlier.
So, for the record,
it's an actor's job to find something. If you can't find it in yourself to find some alliance with your character, then you're not doing your job.
Right.
And it's you can find the kind of I don't know, you can get in the neighborhood. It's not a carbon copy, but you get to the emotions, that they lead maybe somebody else to do something terrible. You have enough self-control to stop, or you have enough sense of reasoning. But we all have the saint and sinner within us. We all have the cherub and the murderer. I mean, these are all parts of our personality, and obviously some have varying degrees of self-control, and things get mixed up. But that's what makes acting, so fun and so drives people, so crazy, is that it's your job to explore the deeper recesses of the psyche sometimes.
Yeah. For the record, in case your Clyde side decides to come out, I did not ask that question. It was a fan. It is not I. I don't want to end up like Kyle, who
Duly noted.
who we have yet to know whatever happened to him.
Well, I was going to say, there was the Ken Corday interview where he was very specific that anybody who gets killed after September 1st, I think it was, will never be returning to the show.
Right.
Like, was very adamant about it.
Yeah.
Well, I got a very nice call from him when I was leaving the show, and he thanked me for being on it, and what a joy. It's some very lovely things.
Great.
And he said, "Remember, we didn't kill you."
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. You weren't killed, so there is a possibility.
And I said, "Come on, Ken. You've been killing people for 50 years, and they show up in a week and a half."
Exactly.
They all have a twin or reconstructive surgery or something. Well, I will say that fans, even though you were a character that everyone loved to hate, they thought that the work that you did on Days was phenomenal, and that they didn't quite use you as they could have on the show. So you've got a lot of fan love from a lot of people because of the work that you did. So kudos to you for that.
Great. I think that again that every character is there to serve the story, and sometimes the story changes and evolves, and there are limitations to what they can do. And given more time and given more of an open canvas, and there's more freedom to create a character that can evolve in a way that so they can stick around for a while. But like I said, this was clear to me from the beginning that this character had a short shelf life, or shorter than many others, because that's what the story needed.
Right.
And I was very happy to work under those conditions.
Yeah.
And if that changes in the future, and they devise some way in which the character comes back, whatever, I'm totally open to it, and it's a lot of fun, and would be fun to do it again. Yeah.
Now, since you've left the show, what are your plans now? What's coming up for you?
Well, I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I don't have to do anything I don't want to do.
Yeah, that's always
many
a good
years
position.
where I had to take whatever work came along because there are bills to pay, and I got kids in school and so forth. And so that's what I look for. That's what I wait for, and we see what comes along. Interestingly enough, I am doing a short-term project. I'm doing a play, and I'll be on sharing the boards with Kate Mansi.
Oh, nice!
It's a one-night only performance of a play called "If All the Sky Were Paper." It's a tribute to the soldiers that have fought in every American war since the Revolution, and the play is composed almost entirely of letters that soldiers written home and that their loved ones have written back to them, not only the American soldiers but also Germans and Iraqis and Kuwaitis and Vietnamese, and so you give a whole sense of really what war is, how it affects people from ground zero.
Wow.
People who fight it and who people who love the people that have to fight it.
Is that going to be in LA?
It's going to be in Santa Barbara
on
November 7th, which is
coming up.
November 11th, which is Veterans Day. So it's a Veterans Day tribute at the Lobero Theater.
Oh,
which theater?
Lobero.
We may have to.
They've done a couple of productions of this in LA in the past couple of years. Kind of a one-off thing. It continues to be in development. But it's a special one-night only presentation up there.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Now, what would you, with so many things that you've done in your career, is there something that you would like to do or like to tackle that you haven't already? Because you've done theater, you've done film, you've done TV. Is there anything, or maybe even a role that you've always wanted to do and haven't been able to do yet?
No, I'm not that. Keyed into it. I mean, in film, a role lives once, and only in theater really do you have the classic roles, and some of them I always wanted to do, and I'm not the right age anymore.
Yeah. I know how that feels.
Opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
But what I like is being surprised and never knowing what's coming around next, and the opportunity to say, wow, that's great. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Being the benefit of somebody else's imagination and taking that journey. That's the fun part.
Yeah. Wow. Well, before we run out of time, because we're just about out, and James, when I told James that it was going to be an hour show, he was like, I don't think I'm interesting enough for a whole hour. And now I can prove to you, James, that you are interesting enough for a full hour, because we've just reached that.
It's been an hour?
It has.
But
thanks. You made it fun. Made it easy.
Good.
Thank you.
But before we unfortunately let you go, where can people keep up with you and keep in touch with you? Because I'm sure fans are going to want to know what's next up for you.
I'm on Twitter, and that's probably the most accessible way.
Okay. And where can they find out if they're in the Santa Barbara area about the show on November 11th?
At libero.com.
Okay.
Nice. Ooh, that could be a fun.
It's a
trip
Wednesday.
for us.
I can actually maybe go, so I'm excited. I might have to go buy a ticket tonight.
Oh, will you buy mine too?
We'll go on a date.
No.
My husband wouldn't like that either.
I'm not that easy. Well, James, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us full insight to you and the character of Clyde. And like I said, we've enjoyed having Clyde on, and we really hope that one day we have that surprise door swing open and in walks Clyde in all of his devilish ways.
One never knows.
He says it like he knows something. See, I think he knows something we don't know.
James is open to possibility.
Really enjoyed it.
Fun. Awesome. Thank you, James.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, you guys, that has been our exclusive interview with the one and only James Reed. We thank him so much for tuning in, and make sure you guys follow him. And if you are in the Santa Barbara area, make sure you check out the play. It is called
If All the Sky Were Papers.
Yes, and it also features Kate Mancy, who plays Abigail.
November 11th in Santa Barbara, the Libero Theater, and I will probably be there.
Oh.
I don't think I have a show that night at my theater, so I can leave.
We can all go.
Yeah, we can make a trip of it.
Yeah.
I'll find out about tickets.
Okay.
I'll call one box office to the other. I'll try and pull some strings.
You're so fancy. So fancy. And before we head out, Mark J. Freeman, where can they find you and your hair in the social media world?
My hair is at Livin' For The Hair, and I am at Lorraine Love, LORAYNE LOVE on Instagram and Twitter, and on Facebook / the Mark J. Freeman.
And of course, you guys can find me on all social media platforms at Lounging with Tony or my website, loungingwithtony.com. And of course, you can find us every week, Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for a full recap of Days of Our Lives, where we are
Dishin Days.
along with my chocolate twin. His chocolate twin, too.
It's my chocolate twin, too.
Mr. James Lott Jr. Thank you guys again for tuning in to this very special Spotlight On with James Reed. We will see you this Sunday for our recap.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.